The following messages will only be in Finnish. Stay tuned for the episode. Kauppuri 5 on toteuttanut iskulausettaan krapulan hoitoa ja hankintaa jo vuodesta 2010. Kauppuri on käynyt läpi monta muodonmuutosta ja kehittänyt itseään vuodesta toiseen. Vuosi koronaa on nyt takana ja kauppuri on edelleen pystyssä, mutta veitsen terällä ollaan. Pelastetaan kauppuri. Yhdessä on Facebook-tapahtuma, jonka tiimolta ravintola pyritään pelastamaan. Mukana on suuri joukko yhteistyökumppaneita ja muita yrityksiä. Sun nimi, Vanerilaatta, oli hetkellisen päähänpiston kautta välittömästi toteutettu idea. Yksityishenkilö tai yritys voi ostaa itselleen paikan kauppurin katosta 20 euron kappale hintaan. Kauppuri 5 täyttää 16.4. jo 11 vuotta ja on siis lunastanut paikkansa tärkeänä osana Oulun ravintolaskeneä. Auta pelastamaan kauppuri. Lisätietoa Facebook-tapahtumasta. Korona on kestänyt jo reilun vuoden ja osa ihmisistä on joutunut erittäin tiukkaan tilanteeseen sekä taloudellisesti että henkisesti. Mielenterveys on ollut ja on edelleenkin koetuksella näiden vaikeiden asioiden edessä ja musiikki ja kulttuuri auttaa jaksamaan vaikeiden aikojen yli. Haluamme tarjota mahdollisuuden unohtaa harma arki hetkeksi ja viettää lauantai-iltaa ilmaisen live-streamin parissa. Striimi tulee näkymään Radiomajaman Facebook- ja YouTube-kanavan kautta ja on nähtävillä ilmaiseksi. Halutessasi voit tukea mielenterveystyötä lahjoittamalla pottiin rahaa Suomen mielenterveysseuran kautta. Tiedot löytyvät Facebook-tapahtuman sivuilta. Elävä musa, parempi mieli, live-striimi, lauantaina 24.4. kello 18 alkaen. Esiintymässä ovat ainakin seuraavat henkilöt. Jukka Takalo, Kaarle Viikate, Maija Paakkari, Janne Aslak ja Rock DJ Sandy. Illan isäntänä toimii Mikko Pernu. Tervetuloa mukaan. Hello there, dear listener, wherever you might be, and welcome to another interview with the Tales Behind the Talent. And this time I have as my guest Johan, so you can present yourself in a brief manner.
In a brief manner, hello there. My name is Johan Andreassen, and I play bass in Amaranthe, Swedish guy living in Oulu.
Thanks. And we'll start with a cool anecdote because I just want to thank you for doing this again because we actually did this interview a couple of days ago, but the file got corrupted or something and even the backup failed. So this time everything seems to be in order, so we can finally continue with the interview.
The sort of digital gods did not speak into our favors.
Yes.
So we made some sacrifice, blood rituals on the yard, and I think we're good to go.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
So first question, how did you get introduced to music?
Music has always been a big part of my family. My mom always played piano and my father always listened to music. When I was a kid, my mom was sort of the best piano player I ever heard. She was awesome. Later on, sorry mom, maybe you're not that awesome when everything comes around, but you were my piano hero when I was a kid. And my father listened to records and very much actually Jesus Christ Superstar.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how about else? Is your family musical in other sense?
Well, yeah, my grandmother, she was actually a big part of founding this Swedish Gothenburg Symphonical Orchestra, who's actually they are actually the national orchestra for Sweden, and my grandmother actually founded what we sort of in metal world would call the fan club, the Friends of the Symphonicals. So she was one of the founding members of that, and also did a lot of pro bono work for the orchestra, traveling around the world with them and helping out with whatever. And she was also a piano player like my mom, and not so she could play in the orchestra, but she has a lot of know-how when it comes to music, especially classic. And then my grandfather, actually, my mom's dad, he was actually upright bass player, played jazz
Yeah.
back in the days, and he was a name for that. And there are a lot of things like that in my family, so to speak.
Okay. So you have a background in both like getting introduced to music by live music and records then.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah. And last time we talked, you mentioned Metallica cassette tape. So
Yeah.
that was how you got introduced to metal music.
Yeah, as far as I can remember, I heard my brother, who is a bit older than me, he was listening to something, and I heard it through his door, and it was... Actually, he was listening to Master of Puppets with Metallica on cassette tape, which most kids don't know what it is today, but ask your parents or go to the museum. But that was basically how my world started to open up, because it sounded so different.
Yeah.
And also I happened to steal my brother's Bon Jovi tape with, I think it was New Jersey album on tape, and I just got completely hooked up on, I think it was Bad Medicine. Listened on my little red cassette deck player and just put it on repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat until the batteries ran out, and I stole new batteries from the remote controls or whatever.
Yeah. So didn't you say last time that you wore the tape out?
Yeah, actually it was like I wore it out so much so it was barely that you could play it. It was like stretched out and just in a really shitty state.
I would imagine that takes a lot of time still.
It takes a lot of effort. I think I was very persistent on destroying that tape.
Yeah. And it's interesting that cassette tapes are coming back in a way that at least some local thrash metal bands have released. They don't have a CD, an LP, anything like that. They just have a cassette tape.
Yeah.
And then they have a code for the digital tracks where you can download them. But you get the memory of it works as a memorabilia, more like an actual thing, I think. But of course, some people still have cassette tapes.
Yeah, I mean, it would be awesome to have, because it would be so fun to sort of get a hold of all these old demo tapes that were circling around when I was a kid. Both the ones I made myself with my bands and other friends, what they did with their bands, because everyone just tried to put it out on cassette. And I remember where I lived, we always used these completely black cassettes. And it looked so cool. And then you made the cover and everything. Yeah.
And my dad, just before Christmas, he bought like a system that has the cassette tape. It has the vinyl player, Bluetooth, and a CD player. It was like that. You bought it like in a local version of Walmart, like Dog Money or something.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
it was awesome. Like €100, but it works.
No, as long as it works and doesn't sound too crappy, then it's a bargain.
Yeah.
But I would really love to have a cassette player and also a vinyl player. Not because I'm sort of a music connoisseur in that way, like these guys that collects vinyls and then only listen to vinyl because they think that is the only way to sort of listen to it.
Yeah.
And of course, in some ways they might be right, but I'm so freaking boring, so I only have these kind of Bluetooth speakers at home. That sounds really good, but I just hook up my Spotify on that and just go. So.
Yeah, it's like I said. I think I said last time that you should. It's an expensive hobby to have all the vinyls and everything, but if you get something from it, I think it's still like beneficial for you to do it. But if it's more like you listen to music, but the vinyls are not the thing, maybe it's not the most rational thing to do.
No.
But I think Bluetooth is fine. But if you want to be a hobbyist of vinyls, it's totally okay. And
of course. I mean, if it floats your boat, then go for it. I mean, everyone have different hobbies, and if you want to collect vinyls, for God's sake, yes, do it. I mean, it's I don't see anything wrong with that,
Yeah.
and there is nothing wrong with that.
And because they seem to be in such a great role right now, they are really like collector's items, and
Yeah,
you can the value doesn't really go down necessarily if it's
No.
not like very mass produced,
yeah,
and there's limited editions and everything.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
but
there could be a lot of money in it. I
Yeah.
mean, you hear about vinyls that someone sold in an auction for thousands of euros, and it originally cost like 50 cents or something.
yeah,
And then it just skyrocketed. So
And-
it is a sort of collector's thing, and also audiophile thing,
yeah,
I guess. And I guess some music should be listened best on vinyl because it's recorded with sort of the vinyl sound capability
yeah.
in mind. So maybe some things are actually better on vinyl.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's figure out.
Yeah. How about, did you decide to start playing music, or was it someone else in your family that decided, okay, Johan is gonna start playing music?
I think it come sort of naturally. My sister, who's also older, she had some sort of music lessons, playing some piano, and then she played the flute, and took on that. And when I was around in third grade or something, I guess around 9-10 years old, you always get this sort of invitation to come to the city music school and see, to try out all the different instruments and see if there was something that would be sort of catching your interest.
Yeah.
And my mom, she thought that, yeah, let's go and see. Her and my dad really wanted me to sort of start playing something. And I think I really wanted that too. So we went, and of course I had in mind that I want to be loud and nasty, so I wanted to play the drums.
Yeah.
That was already a big no on the planning stage. And now having kids, I can totally understand why my parents said no for me playing the drums. So then I tried to figure out what else is really loud. And bagpipes, that's loud and it sounds really fucking cool. And this is actually true. I actually wanted to start to play the bagpipes. It sounds cool and it's loud and it's different. But the sort of the people that worked with the information for this musical school, they had no idea where they could find someone who could teach me bagpipes, let alone wherever I could find a bagpipe to a reasonable price, because apparently they are quite expensive. So I had to downscale and find something that was loud. So I actually started playing the trombone.
Trombone, yeah.
But I had actually, if it wouldn't have been trombone, I think I would have chosen the cello.
Yeah.
Because that was sort of, when I saw it and I heard it, and later on heard it on recordings and all that, and it's just one of the most beautiful sounding instruments there is. It has this really sort of wide emotional sound to it.
I agree, and every time there's like cello on a movie soundtrack or something, game soundtrack, you really like, it hits the feels, so to speak. And how about bass then?
Ooh, that was a completely different story. I actually didn't choose it myself.
Yeah.
It was, I think I was around 12 or something, and it was in music class, ordinary music class in school, and we had this assignment that we should form a little band and just try to perform one song, whatever. And I sort of I lost the lottery more or less, so I got to play the bass in that, and I didn't thought it was so cool, but I did it, and then sort of went into in the past, and then like a year later, me and a friend, we really got into music. It was basically around when Metallica's Black Album came out, and we were just diehard real Metallica fans. Just everything should say Metallica that you wore, and you wrote Metallica on your desk and everywhere. And we had, once again, music class, and there was this really cool substitute teacher. That first lesson we came into the hall or the lesson room or whatever, and he stood there. He had some funky hair, and he had a guitar that was blasted with Donald Duck stripes, comic stripes, and it looked so cool. And this jolly, really, really lovely guy, who I have a lot to thank for, he just started to blast away on his electric guitar and the little amplifier and played. I think it was like Anti-Salmon or something. And it sounded really like the album. And it just, wow, this sounds so cool. And me and my friend, we sort of started to talk with Hasse, was his name. And he sort of sparked the interest and introduced us into this musical community, where they had a place where a lot of cool rehearsal rooms for the cool guys, older guys that had their own gear. And then there was this room number 3, the room for new beginners. And he set us up that we could come there and start playing and practice. So we were a couple of friends. And the reason why I got to play the bass was actually, first off, my brother had a bass that I, of course, was not allowed to touch, not even look at. If I was in the same room at the bass, he would torture me. Maybe not that bad, but it was his pride and joy. But he went off to military service and stuff. So, of course, I secretly started borrowing that. And so that was one of the sort of selling points for the other guys, that I should play the bass. But I wanted to play the drums or sing or whatever. That was cool, because bass wasn't as cool back then. So we simply had the shortest straw. The shortest straw. And I pulled the shortest straw and I lost. So I was forced to play this 4-string, really boring, not as cool instrument.
And the other guys were lucky enough to be the cool guys of the band.
Yeah. God, I was miserable. No, but that's actually how it started. And then I sort of started to enjoy it a lot. And this guy, Hasse, he really sort of fed my interest in this. And helped me out in a lot of ways. And long story short, today I'm the only one who actually still plays, I think. Especially on this level.
Out of the group.
Yeah.
So when Hasse was the teacher, right?
Yeah.
When he played in the Sandman for the first time, was it like something sparked inside of you, like, okay, if he can do it, then I can also do it? Because had you heard like metal music played live before that?
No, I can't remember that I had. I think that was sort of the first time that something that I heard on an album that sounded so insanely cool and hard as Metallica Black Album sounded and still sound today. It's a phenomenal record. And then you hear this guy with a Donald Duck guitar actually playing it, and in my ears it sounded just the same. And it was like, as you said, well, if he can, why can't I? And he sort of, I think he saw the spark in me during the time, and the next coming couple of months. So I think he sort of pushed me,
that kind of
in the right kind of way.
That kind of proves it that you really, as a music teacher, you really should have a large like variety of music that you introduce to your students, because you don't know, it might be the smallest thing for you, but it might just spark something. If it's not metal, if it's like a cello or something, that there would be, even though it's expensive, but even if there's a day that someone could get introduced to classical instruments, for example, for a day, it could spark something. Not just pop music, which is very popular nowadays.
I can actually honestly regret that I didn't continue playing trombone or picked up the cello. Not that I would like to change that from the bass that I'm playing now, but I think it would certainly in a lot of ways be so beneficial for me at the moment, because or during my career overall, because you sort of, the more instruments you learn, the more sort of input you get in how music is made. So I really regret that.
And usually I think there's more musical theory with those kinds of instruments instead of like you can start playing bass at least nowadays by just like reading tabs.
Yeah,
But,
tabs and watching YouTube.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you can do that basically with any instrument at some point. But it's like bass and guitar, I think it's much more accessible in that sense that you can always find good sort of tutorials on YouTube or internet or wherever that. And also bass and the guitar is often the big part of the music most people listen to, so it's much more accessible.
Yeah.
But yeah, learn as much as possible about as much as possible, I guess. And I regret I didn't do it.
Yeah. So what kind of music did you play with that first band, so to speak?
It was just Metallica, just pure Metallica. We were so hooked on that. It was insane. We were determined to be the new Metallica. And I think, like, I'm not saying I'm right, but almost was like we had a dress code that you can't come and rehearse if you don't have a Metallica t-shirt.
Okay.
And we only played Enter Sandman and For Whom the Bell Tolls over and over again. And it must have sounded awful. And the people that heard us rehearse, I mean, I am so sorry if we killed your musical interest.
Yeah.
Because I guess it sounded awful, but we had a lot of fun, at least.
Wasn't those two songs the first song that you mentioned that you played live?
Yeah. It was like in this community park in my old hometown. And this music community, there's always every summer they set up this free show where they got bands from the music community to come and play, to sort of get the live experience. And that was our first show we had with that band. And we played Enter Sandman and For Whom the Bell Tolls. And I remember I was so cocky before, like, oh, it's gonna be so fucking awesome and headbang, yeah. And then before going up on stage, or literally the whole day before, I was literally terrified. Like, what have I gotten myself into? I was so nervous. When I walked up on stage, it was like tunnel vision and shaking and cold sweat. I was so nervous. It was horrible, but I did it.
Yeah. For me, the only song that I have played with an instrument, as far as I can remember, was Paranoid in this high school seniors show. It had different lyrics, but it was because it was so used that none of the actual guitarists wanted to play it, and I had just played some guitar, and I can play it without the solo, and it went okay, but I remember that the first time was really like I feared for my life or something.
Yeah. It's when you look back now at moments like that, it really feels like a bit embarrassing that, oh my God, why was I so nervous? But back then it was literally a matter of life and death up to some point.
So were you like a 14, 13 then? Or?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. 13-ish, I guess. But it was not my first live experience, however. My very first live experience I ever had playing an instrument was actually, I was 10 or 11. I was playing the trombone.
Yeah.
And the music school, every year they sort of arrange this spring concert with all their students performing something and the orchestra they had and all that. And I was asked that, why don't you come and play Love Me Tender, this old Elvis Presley tune. And I rehearsed with my mother because she played the piano, so she sort of played with me on that one. And then I was supposed to go up on stage with this other piano teacher because my mom had to go to work, of course. But I just simply refused. I totally refused. I got so nervous the day before that I told my mom, I'm not going up with anyone else. I can't do it. I was, once again, literally terrified. So my mom had to call her work and say, sorry, I'm going to come in a bit late tomorrow because I have a show.
Yeah.
So she basically took time off to do a show with me and playing Love Me Tender. But it went good.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like it's very common to have stage fright, I think, and to have to play an instrument or something for the first time. I can just imagine that it would have felt really over exciting for a 10-11-year-old.
It is. I mean, take all your biggest fears and cram it up into like 3 or 4 minutes. Like all the fears, and amplify them with 10 and just push them into these 4 minutes, and you literally freeze. Tunnel vision, you can't breathe, you can't think of anything, and you start to doubt everything you know about everything, basically.
Yeah.
So, but it just, somehow you just do it anyway.
Do you still get, not necessarily stage fright, but do you still get a little bit nervous before shows?
Oh yeah. I think in my case, and in many cases, I think it's actually helps you to sort of keep the nerve, and also it helps you to sort of express the feeling of excitement to be on stage. I know that many people, especially metal people, because they are supposed to be so freaking cool all the time, and of course we are. No, but many metal people, musicians, maybe they wouldn't admit being nervous or being excited about it, but I think most people are excited before you go up on stage because it's so fucking fun. But yeah, I get excited, a bit nervous, and I more or less all the time get these sort of butterflies before stage. And I think it's just part of my persona, part of my sort of preparation to go up on stage. But nowadays, as soon as you hit the stage, okay, if something doesn't go terribly wrong, then it's just go up on stage, and once you start playing, it's just this ongoing freight train.
Yeah.
That you just do it. And then of course you have times when you have technical issues or whatever, and that sort of stresses you, and you
like
can
having
get
your bass trap like in Rockfest a couple of years ago.
My bass strap came loose and I dropped my bass, and that has happened a couple of times, but now I have good strap locks, so it literally really hard to sort of take the strap locks off even. So, but yeah, stuff like that, and all kinds of technical issues that can happen. I mean, there's a lot of cables to know where they are going and what they're doing. Thank God it's not my work, but I'm not envious to stage personnel when things go wrong, so to speak, because it's a living hell.
But about the excitement before the show, I think that I would imagine that that's part of the features that make when the show goes well, it makes it more rewarding in a way, because you've had the kind of feeling that, okay, you have butterflies in your stomach, but when everything goes well, it kind of emphasizes the joy you get out of it.
Yeah, it does. It really emphasizes and amplitude the feeling that when you have a really good show in front of a big crowd and everything just go perfect, then the reward you get afterwards with your self-confidence and such, it's insane.
Yeah.
And you're really hopped up on adrenaline and dopamine and adrenaline, and everything is just like buzzing in your head. So it is a fantastic feeling.
So I had just written Pearl Jam here, and we talked about that too during the last time. So Pearl Jam was also a big factor in your... Was it a little bit later than Metallica?
That was basically in the same sort of period. Metallica was, I guess, the band that sort of made me start to listen to music. And then I remember it was me and a couple of friends. We were at my friend's place, and now remember this is like early 90s, so it's like 30 years ago. Cable TV was not really that common.
Yeah.
Most of us just had 3 channels. But I had a friend, he had cable TV and he had MTV. And MTV, kids, actually stands for music television. not more on television as it seems to be today. But there was this show called Headbangers Ball with metal goddess Vanessa Warwick. And if you don't know who Vanessa Warwick is, then you are not into metal. But she was this host for Headbangers Ball, and I think everyone who was into metal and watched Headbangers Ball were secretly having a crush on her.
Of course.
Yeah. But she actually played Pearl Jam with their hit single Alive. And I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, this was even before the video for Alive came out. That also was sort of a rush work because they had to put out a video because it was this insane hit. But it was she actually played a song with only still pictures rolling to the song.
Yeah.
So there wasn't even a video, but she just showed still pictures of them. That was how much and how quick that song hit, so to speak, and just climbed all the charts. And it really, in every sense of the word, triggered my emotions for music. Because it showed that you could play music that was groovy and sort of more open than maybe metal was in sound-wise. And it was this new sort of music that I have never heard before.
Yeah.
Because it ranged from earlier generations such as Led Zeppelin, which I later started to listen to more, and more like that sort of music. And actually, when I've heard Pearl Jam, I got more or less obsessed with it. I actually have the Pearl Jam logo tattooed on my arm.
Yeah.
Because they meant so much to me. And Pearl Jam 10, that whole album is to me just one of the best albums I ever heard. And I think that was actually what made me subconsciously decide that, hey, I'm going to fucking do that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do that so much so I don't have to.
Anything else?
Yeah, I don't have to, and I don't want to do anything else. And thanks to that album, I think that is a lot of why I am where I am today. One of the main reasons.
Yeah. Didn't you start a band because of that?
Yeah, it was actually at that time, or later on, me and other couple of friends, we started up this band because it was the sort of, the hated word grunge, but that era, the Seattle punk rock scene era that came, and we just didn't dare to try and even copy Pearl Jam playing, but we managed to sort of copy Nirvana. But I was never into Nirvana like that. I was more Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, Alice in Chains. But we started with that, and then next door was this band Rehearsed, and they played sort of punk, close to Bad Religion-ish, and their name was Antabus, which was all right, cool. And we had this rivalry between each other. We always tried to mess with each other and being grumpy and try to be cool towards each other and all that. But me and the singer in the band I played with, we ended up in a house party with the guitarist and the drummer from that band. And for some reason we sort of put all the bullshit aside because we were really not friends back then. But we had this common nominee, and that was Pearl Jam. And they loved Pearl Jam, we loved Pearl Jam, and they felt like they couldn't do Pearl Jam in their band, and we couldn't do it in our band. So we decided, hey, let's get together and just play some cover songs.
Yeah.
Just do cover shows with Pearl Jam. So actually, one of those very rare times we actually form a band while drunk on a party, and you actually continue with it. It doesn't end when you wake up the day after. We actually pull it through. And we formed this band that started off playing all kinds of Pearl Jam covers and Stone Temple Pilots, Alice in Chains, all that kind of music, until one of the guitarists came and said, hey, I have a riff here. Shall we try it? So we tried that out and just felt like, Jesus Christ, we can actually do something like this. All right. And the name of that band was actually Buddha Pop Shot. More or less like holy sort of ejaculation.
Yeah.
We later changed the name to Bruce
Mm.
after all the biggest heroes: Bruce Lee, Bruce
Yeah.
Boxleitner, Bruce Wayne. Yeah, and also Bruce is the slang term for beer in Australia, so
Yeah.
we thought that would be fitting.
Yeah. If you go there, if you would go there someday, so
Yeah,
have some brews and listen to some brews.
yeah.
This is the end of part 1 with Johan Andreassen of Amaranthe, and to hear more about his next chapter in life, meaning moving to Gothenburg and ultimately joining the band Amaranthe, listen to part 2.